You're live.
We are live. This is Senate Finance. This is February 2nd, Groundhog Day. I understand we're gonna have an early spring. It feels like March out there today, in April. And we're gonna start, with S 182 and this, yeah, we have Emily Brown from the insurance DFR. And this, we're trying to deal with the issue that happened with EC5 or one of their subcontractors that left wires in a hayfield and some cows were seriously hurt.
Yeah.
And this would make the original contractor liable, even though it was in the contract. It was suggested that maybe a surety bond or something would be an easier, better way to pay to cover that, and we thought we'd ask.
Okay, sure. All right, great. For the record, my name is Emily Brown, the Deputy Commissioner of Insurance at BFR. So I think for just a little background, I read through the bill S 182. And looking at the liability policies we have on file that would relate to this event, normally they do exclude subcontractor liability. So if there were, you know, subcontractor on the project like you outlined, and the property owner went after the general contractor, their insurance wouldn't necessarily respond on behalf of the subcontractor to be
Right.
excluded.
No, but
I can also talk a little bit about surety bonds, and how they, you know, potentially could apply to this situation. So surety bonds, unlike insurance products, are usually, there's three parties. There's the principal, who's usually the one who's purchasing the surety bond. There's the surety, usually it's an insurance company. And then there's the obligating, that's the person to whom the obligation is owed. I did do some quick searches and I think there are out there subcontractor liability bonds or subcontractor performance bonds available. And so in this instance, what would happen is that the general contractor would then require the subcontractor to purchase a bond if they were, you know, engaging in a project. And then if the subcontractor didn't perform the duties as outlined in the bond, the surety company, the insurance company would then pay whatever, you know, however it's outlined in the surety contract for any, you know, performance that wasn't completed or any issues. So I think other things I want to point out are that the department doesn't review surety contracts. It's exempt from our filing and rate approval process. So I don't really necessarily have any insights into the availability or cost of these products. I imagine that if you were a subcontractor, you would, you know, have to find one that, you know, you'd have to find a surety company that was willing to write you this bond, and then also depending on the risk, you know, there's obviously additional costs that would be added to, you know, the project in general. So that's that, and I can answer questions or, you know, that's kind of the background that I wanted to provide.
And you know, in this instance, I assume in many, if not most instances, the contractor, the original, who's hires the subcontractor, has in their agreement that the subcontractor will have insurance. You know, apparently, this insurance lapsed like the day before the job was finished. I'm just wondering if we require that contract, the first person to hire, to their insurance to cover the liability for subcontractor, what that might do to business liability insurance.
Right, so it could do one thing, it could increase costs, obviously, but it could also decrease availability. So I think it's if you're a general contractor and you have a liability policy, assuming it's applying to multiple projects, it might be hard for an insurance company to underwrite that risk. So if you have multiple projects and you're switching subcontractors, I think probably I would really recommend talking to brokers or surety bond companies about this. To get a better understanding of any availability issues it would cause, but I imagine that you know, insurance companies would probably have a hard time taking on risks that they might not know at the time that they're writing the policy.
Okay,
So,
now Senator Brock, then you.
Based on what you know, about this, do other states handle it the same way that Vermont does? Or are there states that have, more mandates about that kind of situation than we do?
So you're talking about specifically, do other states require general contractors to cover their subcontractors? I'm not aware of any other states, but I will be honest, I haven't done any kind of state by state analysis of liability laws.
Mhm.
I can do that and provide that information.
Well, I guess in this situation, at least as I understand it, maybe you know more about it than I do, in the situation where the farmer finds he's got wire in all of his cows or
Right.
whatever. Do you know how that situation wound up?
We talked about this, I think it was a few years ago, and we were involved, I can't remember how the liability and who ended up covering it.
There was, I understand, an agreement,
Okay,
is what I heard. It was settled. So I assume that the subcontractor's insurance company, because who knows what day the
Yeah.
Right.
wire got thrown, that it got settled.
FX
Yes.
told me there was a combination of things that had resolved the settlement from more than one party. That he wasn't telling me the confidence.
Well, I think
Yeah, but he wasn't giving me the
he's not
details.
giving, no, that's the terms of the settlement. I don't know the details,
Yeah.
just all the.
Well, I just think about this from the standpoint that effectively we have a municipal agency that is kind of contracting for and overseeing this process, and having the wire strung is not voluntary, particularly on the part of the person whose property is involved and, you know, who's responsible for it.
And
And this bill would say someone is.
I think you want people to be able to afford
Yeah.
insurance. And this, if this in fact says that the contractor is liable for all of the sub people under him. Even though their agreement with him says they have insurance. But they can cancel, I mean, we've had that with cars, you know, you get it registered and you cancel the insurance the day after. So they don't have insurance, so I think, you know, what Emily is saying is, we'll see if we can find a broker, we've got a couple of insurance groups, actually, Clear Buckley has.
You know, normally, as I think of, just going back years ago, where you had situations where the person that you hired to do some work had insurance. And once that insurance, if that insurance lapsed, the insurance company had a duty to inform you of that fact so that you could act and know that you're dealing with someone who's uninsured. Now,
Yeah,
how that works, where the insurer has a contract with a third party beyond that, I'm not sure.
great.
Is that your experience?
Yeah, so this is kind of bringing back memories, and we actually worked with, I can't remember the organization, on some guidelines for how these types of situations could be avoided in the future, and I think it was specific to broadband
Mhm.
projects.
ooh, can you
Um,
find?
I can, yep,
Okay,
and
good.
it's kind of filtering back. I wasn't aware that
Yeah,
this was the
these kinds of
specific,
things come back,
Yeah.
yes.
yeah, I wasn't aware that this was the specific issue you were interested in, so I can definitely look back, and we were trying to more solve it on the notification
Mhm.
side of it, right? To
Yeah.
make sure that if you were running this type of project, that you would have a system in place to check ever so often to make sure there was liability insurance in place. So I can dig down and find that.
That might help.
Yeah.
Because we also have into this a labor shortage. There is nobody from Vermont or even New England, but I've seen three people in Vermont. And so you take what you can get, you require they have insurance, they show you the insurance. If the contractor that has no way to know
Right,
that insurance is lapsed, it's hard to hold them liable.
right,
But if there is a way,
right.
that would be helpful.
One of the ways is to tell them that they are liable if the people they hired don't have insurance.
Okay,
They can darn well figure it out.
but the next part is if you tell them, and the law tells them they are liable for anything their subcontractor does, the cost of insuring them, because it's a lot more risk, is going to go up, and you may end up where they don't have any insurance, and when that happens, it's the people that get hurt that are the victims, as they were this time. So that's the balance. We're doing that a lot this year.
Well, but the balance though is.
Except
that
these are
somebody with
regulated
insurance.
utilities, and we have the authority to regulate them in their course of doing business.
If you want to say this is just for regulated utilities, that's a very strong limiting factor. Your bill takes in everybody who contracts a painter. It's very broad. If we could limit it. And I don't know that I want to get into the electric utilities. I mean, we've got one case. And I don't want to use a sledgehammer to,
I interrupted Senator Brock.
No.
Yeah.
I served on a committee 10 years ago that was looking at people who built homes and other things who hired subcontractors.
Yeah.
And it was in large part dealing with workers' compensation and injuries. And they would say, well, someone on a Saturday said to their brother-in-law, come on over and give me a hand. The brother-in-law slips, falls, and injures himself. And the contractor didn't have insurance on the brother-in-law, and the brother-in-law would go to the labor board and say, you know, I got hired by my brother-in-law, and I got hurt, and now I'm not being covered. And the court's decision was that person would be covered, and then everyone else had to pay for it.
okay,
It was, you could avoid having to have insurance for employees by hiring people that didn't have to be insured.
okay,
And
but that's,
you've got to put a
yes,
halt to that,
right, but that's not what we're dealing with in this bill.
but it's similar.
Okay, but if you make workers' compensation insurance so expensive that nobody carries it, then everybody loses.
Everything will hire subcontractors, so do what they used to do,
Okay.
which is hire employees.
Okay. We are on cows, wires, and phone poles.
Yep. Thank you for getting it back on the.
It's a talent of mine. So if we just leave this wide open and it's everybody, and there's a good chance that the cost of insurance could get prohibitively high, which could leave a lot more people at risk.
Right.
So far, we've had two, I guess there were some goats that ate something at some place.
I thought they could eat anything.
They do, that's the problem, they ate something, and somebody had spilled on the ground they weren't supposed to eat. And I think that was a subcontractor with the internet. Yeah, it was even bad for goats, this is fun. But, and we have the cows with the wire in the field, so we've had two incidences. I'm just wondering if before we change the whole insurance setup, if you can find out if there is a way, a notification, so that the contractor knows when
Right.
the sub has let their insurance lapse, then they've got an ability to do that. And maybe we could think of some ways to prevent these kinds of accidents within the industry without mucking with everybody's.
Yeah, and I'll go back and look at it, and I think because these projects usually involve an RFP process, I think the thought was that, you know, the requirement of coverage and how, you know, maybe having a subcontractor, you know, check in every quarter or something, sending certificate of insurance to show I have coverage. that would be another way, and I think we had also looked at, and again, I don't wanna speak out of turn without looking at the document, but, the subcontractors, insurance company sending, like, having it be the contractor be notified if there was a change in coverage, but I wanna go back and look at where we landed on that.
Because a big subcontractor in this particular industry I've seen has not had green flags on it. They've been from all over the country.
Yeah.
So I assume some of them may have insurance in their home state.
Right.
And yeah, it seems like this might be using a sledgehammer when we could find a less forceful way.
Right.
And maybe we'll have EC Fiber is our big one, come in and talk to us about what that would mean to them, because we want them putting up wire very quickly, which means they have to hire the help they can get.
Right.
And, that might not always be your first preference for the help you get.
Exactly.
Okay,
So we're landing on just regulated utilities and or some kind of quarterly notification.
we're gonna find out what's out there. I think,
Before you came in, we actually worked on this issue and tried to help, inform, I can't remember what organization it was, about what process could put in place to avoid this issue where there's a lapse and then the GC doesn't know about it. So I'm going to go back and find that work and then send that along to you all, and then I think it would be good to talk to whatever organization we work with, I just can't off the top of my
if you
head
can
remember.
find out who we
Yeah.
should talk to, because if we make all contractors strict liability for whatever
Right,
their
right.
guys do, that's gonna greatly increase the cost of
Yeah.
liability insurance, and you might find
Right.
you've got more people without it.
I do think a lot of contractors would like to know that someone's insurance
Oh, I think
lapsed.
they
That,
would.
it seems like a helpful
Yeah,
consumer protection
yes,
thing.
and so hopefully we can prevent any more painful incidents, at least for the cows and for their owners. Senator Bray,
I'm sorry, well, Blake, did we end up with anyone having to go all the way to suit in order to try to recover? When there was no insurance?
there,
I remember, can't remember from last year.
and I don't even know that the insurance of the subcontractor lasts like the day before the job ended. So if, was the insurance in play when cows got, wire in the field? And that was all a settlement between the parties, so no one knows what the final outcome was.
We were different, payments came from different sources.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know that, I'm sure the farm owners were not made whole, but they weren't left with nothing either. So we will, if you can find that out from us,
Yep.
and we'll talk to either folks from Barracuda, maybe we could ask Rob Fish, who was in charge of organizing all of them, to talk to us about what it might mean if we did this, cause CUD's right, but if we did this for everybody, it could have a huge impact on the insurance. market.
Yes, I agree with that.
If we just limited it to poles and wire people, it would be less. I have a feeling that the utilities are probably well insured, and have they've been doing this, it's the cable guys, and they're new, and there's just subcontractors floating around, so. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
That is. So let's see if we can find it. We have 5 more minutes. Okay, have we heard from Maria at all?
Yes, she'll be here. She has drafted it. She said she's
Okay.
bringing hard copies.
We have S-180 for a possible vote, but this is Maria's drafted that. I think both sides are okay. Nobody got everything they want, but nobody got hurt too badly, and some people move forward. Yeah,
Best of what we do. Approach kindergarten.
Got anything you want?
I wonder how long we have to get those zoning ordinances in for we go.
I'm gonna look at it, see if it says.
I think we finished the work. I mean, they were working out there all. We were working out there all summer. That whole area was torn up, but we probably just should ask the sergeant at arms,
Thank you.
see how long they have to stand there. We're waiting for our draft.
I wonder if there's anything needed along those notices.
Stand down,
If
exactly.
these are useless notices that are here to show only if no one ever reads, probably reads this.
Thank you. Yeah.
Failed
Does the
the
legislator
legal-
actually have to do
Exactly.
Which is, you know, is a big D.
I put a 6-foot yard, a 6-foot fence up around my house, and then I was told afterwards I needed a permit. So they needed to get a permit, and they said I had to post to warn that I was gonna do it, even though it was already done. I had to put it up.
You should try to send her here, so.
Take a picture.
She's able to do that,
Yeah, we're talking about posting on a land or a project that is under Act 250 review, so that people know that something's potentially going on with that piece of property.
Which something can be under review for 3 years, so just wondering all of the science.
You were getting to the location.
We gave a Act 250 permit to Okemo ski area for withdrawing water from the Black River at certain times of year. And one of the conditions was they had to do a monthly report on the stream banks. And the guy who did the report began to suspect that no one was reading. And so he started writing things. At one point, teenage kids hung out there drinking beer, but we assassinated them with machine guns. And there was no,
Just to see if you're paying attention.
just, and there was no feedback.
You keep me writing these things, you should at least read them, right? This committee is not fond of studies.
Yeah.
Some other committees are fond. Health and welfare, we love studies.
Thank you.
We actually got, I have not assigned you to read studies. We got assigned studies to read health and welfare. And then we had to report back to the committee what we read. I did the one on death and hospice. I thought everybody got it.
It was like doing a book report.
Yeah, it was. It was-
I was on the committee, I used to do my, I did 3 book reports.
That's what it was.
Who was this, Jim Sheridan?
Yeah, yeah,
The Claire.
Claire right behind her.
They run for
Yeah, I think it was Claire that makes the,
Jeez. Clear irons.
Yeah.
yeah. Yes, she knows. So we've got 5 minutes. We are at these, waiting for our draft visit.
Line for something?
Yeah, you start line.